everyone. Thank you for joining my channel today. This is the Facts on JW channel. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and tell more people about this channel so more people can learn the truth about the truth. Today I want to talk about persecution. Jehovah's Witness organization has always felt that they have been persecuted by many government officials over the many years. But what they don't realize is that they create their own fake persecution. They make the members believe that they are truly being persecuted when they're not. And in some rare cases that there has been persecution, it has been their own fault for not following government laws. For example, Russia has asked Jehovah's Witness organization many years ago to please stop speaking against their own religion, and the organization has always said really terrible things about Russia and about really just any government. They always talk bad about governments and how terrible they are, and how certain, pretty much any religion other than Jehovah's Witness is the whore of Babylon. They're all false religions. And, you know, some countries take offense to this, like Russia has. So they have said, hey, you know what? Y'all need to stop talking bad about our religion, bad about our government, or we're going to have to ask you to stop, preaching. And of course, they don't stop. So then what happens? Some of them end up in jail, when it could have been easily fixed by just not talking crap about other religions or government. The other thing that creates persecution, we'll say persecution in quotation, is that the Jehovah's Witnesses also are violate human rights two ways. One is through shunning, which is the issue that Norway has decided that Jehovah's Witness organization really should not be allowed to be considered a nonprofit organization because they violate human rights. And that would be through their shunning policy. The other is the no blood transfusion policy. So if somebody is dying and in need of blood, and I can give you my blood to make you continue living, and you reject that, and you'd rather die, it just makes no sense. What's the difference in receiving blood or an organ? An organ is allowed, but it used to not be. Jehovah's Witness organization, faithful and discreet slave, governing body, whatever you want to call it, they used to say, and I have read this in some older articles, maybe back in the 80s, is that organs were considered, to receive an organ would be basically being a cannibal. But then later they changed their rules and said, well, you know what, it's okay to receive an organ as long as there's no blood involved. So you're saying that the person who needed an organ back in the 80s, who died, could be alive today if they hadn't changed their or if they had said it's okay to have organs. You see how this makes no sense at all. So they're always trying to say that they are the victims here. And the other thing is the last days are never ending, and persecution apparently goes along with the last days, leading up to Armageddon and then eventually the paradise earth. But let's see the latest video that the organization has put out regarding persecution and the last days. Let's watch.
Would you agree that we live in difficult times? Despite some advances in technology, people still must endure the ravages of war, food shortages, pestilence, and disasters of various kinds. Add to that the bitter opposition and persecution we face from those who do not yet know Jehovah.
So what does war have to do with being persecuted? This is not the case. The organization is instilling fear in their members and making them feel like they're going to be persecuted any day now. And that persecution leads to not only that is an identifying mark of the last days, but that would mean pretty soon Armageddon will come and we are at the end of all this. So persecution is a good thing in a JW mind, but it's just terrible that they make people, the members, feel so scared and so afraid that they're going to be persecuted. But they'll think it's all worth it in the end because Jehovah will be pleased that they were persecuted. They want to feel like they are the only ones, that they are the most unique people out there. Well, see, we do it this way and nobody else does, so that means we're right and everyone else is wrong. But that isn't the case. That just means they're unique in their own way of doing things, but that doesn't make it right.
In the centuries since Stephen's day, false religion has continued to mislead, to slaughter, and to corrupt the earth with her sexual immorality. So once again we can ask, why praise Jah? The heavenly chorus answers, because God's judgments are true and righteous. Our just God Jehovah will make sure that false religion will never again defile this world and harm his loyal servants. The destruction of Babylon the Great marks the beginning of what Jesus called the Great Tribulation. After false religion is gone, what comes next? The book of Ezekiel foretells that the nations will attack Jehovah's people, coming like a vast army and like clouds covering the land. But this is not the first time that the political system has acted against Jehovah and his people. Many nations have fiercely opposed true worship. They've banned our meetings and our preaching work, imprisoned men and women, old and young, for the so-called crime of owning a Bible.
Wait a second, did you just say that they were persecuted for owning a Bible? I don't think so. It was because they didn't follow the government's laws. The laws stated not to go preaching against the government, against the political rulers of their country, or against other religions in that country. That's all it was. So you see how they twist things and they make it all about them, victimizing themselves and making the members feel super scared, like one day they are going to be persecuted and there's no way out of this.
Some of our brothers and sisters have even been tortured for their faith. Of course, as long as Jehovah allows human governments to rule over us, we respect them. And not all governments have actively opposed us.
Whoa, 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 Watchtower. You're getting ahead of yourselves here. You're not going to be persecuted like you think you are, and the end is not coming, okay? It's not going to come. And the problem is with these videos is that they'll be like, oh, wow, look at this amazing, beautiful paradise. That's what we long for. We long for what is coming in the future. Don't live for now. Now doesn't matter. It's what's going to come tomorrow. And funny thing is, for those who know the Bible, Jesus says, do not be anxious for tomorrow brings its own worries. Yet they are continually being anxious for tomorrow and not living for today. This is how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live for today, in the moment. This is what we have, and this is what we can control. We can't control what might happen in the future, hundreds, thousands of years that go by, and you don't know what could happen. All you know is what you can control in your life. But I just hate how they make the other members feel so afraid all the time. And I really feel sorry for the PMOs in there who are having to listen to all this and knowing that it's not true. So my heart goes out to all of you. But let me show you another little clip. So I came across this picture from a watchtower. Look how the old lady is being arrested, and then she has to go to court to defend her faith as a Jehovah's Witness. And then the next thing you know, she's in prison because she's a Jehovah's Witness. This is just so unrealistic. This is terrible. How dare you, watchtower, scaring old ladies like that? And look what paragraph 19 says in the watchtower. It says, "No, there is no telling what injustices we may yet face before this system ends. Whatever comes our way, let us never stop praying to Jehovah for help." But they just think that this is going to work out okay no matter what, no matter how terrible and how much fear they instill in the witnesses, that it'll all work out in the end. So you can see that the organization is telling the members, the brothers and sisters who are in the truth, that they can expect persecution at any age. And it could be, many have been persecuted and they can expect to be persecuted. Now, I'm not denying there hasn't been some persecution. I know there has been, but a lot of it could have been avoided by following some basic rules that I already mentioned. And also, they mentioned that the Whore of Babylon represents all false religions. So in other words, all religions other than Jehovah's Witnesses. And so does that mean that these other religions are going to persecute Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, that is not true, because there are other Christians that have been persecuted. In fact, there is currently a group of people in Africa that are being persecuted. They are Christians. And also people of other religions have been persecuted. Jews have been persecuted. Muslims have been persecuted. People of many different faiths have been persecuted depending on what country they live in and what the rules are in those countries. Let's take a look at some other religious groups who have been persecuted. First one I'm going to show you is a group of Christians living in Africa who have been persecuted for their faith that are not Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's take a look.
There's a gap of information for the body of Christ. We need to let them know that the church in Sudan has been suffering a lot, and the suffering has increased after this conflict in 2023.
So you can see that other Christians are being persecuted too, like this country in Sudan. If you are a Christian, you can lose your home, you can go to jail, and even children and families are basically homeless, and then dodging bullets too, some of them. So these are Christians who are supposedly part of the Whore of Babylon, of false religion. And even though the governments are the ones who are enforcing the law here and causing people to be persecuted, Jehovah's Witnesses believe that people who belong to other religions and other, calling them the Whore of Babylon, that they are going to be destroyed by Jehovah one day in Armageddon. So it seems illogical, doesn't it? And then I also came across another group of people who were some Muslims who live in Turkestan, which is a colony of China, who are also being persecuted by the Chinese government. Let's take a look.
The west of China are facing one of the worst examples of oppression and ethnic cleansing in the world today.
The Chinese government has interned up to 1 million people in re-education camps.
Inmates are detained indefinitely without charge and forced to denounce Islam, their religion, and praise the Communist Party.
Chinese authorities weren't just targeting adults. Her children were apparently taken to this orphanage. She hasn't heard from them since.
East Turkestan, the home of the Muslim minority known as the Uyghurs, has seen the mass internment of 2 million civilians who face physical and mental torture until they renounce their faith. The Chinese government calls this re-education.
That was very sad to watch. So there are people out there that are suffering, being persecuted for their beliefs, for their religion. And it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses. So you see that Jehovah's Witnesses are not the only religion out there who are being persecuted. There are many other religious groups that do get persecuted. But Jehovah's Witnesses love to pat themselves on the back and act like they're the victims and say, look at us, we are being persecuted, then we must be doing it right. And also, they believe that they're the only people in the world that do preaching, that preach the good news of God's kingdom. Well, they're wrong. There are other Christians who do this as well, but they do it in a different way. Like some Christians go on mission trips to help people in different lands who may be in need. But part of our preaching work as Christians, for those who believe in Christianity, the part of that is that you would help people in need by giving them food or by providing supplies that they may need. And this is your way of showing Christian love. So Jehovah's Witnesses are not unique in this. In fact, they are the most unhelpful group of people out there that do not help other people. They just usually help their own people, and even then it's limited. But let's look at a little bit of the beginnings of Jehovah's Witnesses and how they started their preaching work.
In January of 1940, The Informant announced the beginning of magazine street work, with a focus on working the busiest parts of cities. After that, many became familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses by seeing us offering magazines on streets all over the world. However, not everyone appreciated our efforts. In some cases, entire mobs of people would attack our brothers and sisters. But they courageously pressed forward in the preaching work despite the constant threat of violence.
Hooray! You were a magazine company selling a bunch of magazines and putting children's lives in danger, because if there's an angry mob, well, we need to put children out on the street corners to advertise for us. I mean, that is absurd, is it not? Just Jehovah will protect us no matter where we are at. No, that's not true. God gave you the ability to think for yourself. It's called common sense and critical thinking skills, and He wants us to use that. But how did Jehovah's Witnesses get going with all of this crazy literature? And what was it that they were saying back in the 1920s that got people to maybe get upset, or maybe they were interested? So let's take a look and see what they were preaching back in the 1920s.
Tracts were distributed at street corners all across North America and Europe. Our public witnessing work was just getting started. In the 1920s, we launched a massive preaching campaign around the publication and public talk series, Millions Now Living Will Never Die. We thought outside the box and tried numerous methods to draw the public's attention. And it worked. Over the next several years, we developed even more methods of reaching people.
So they were preaching that the end would come in 1925 and that we would have Paradise Earth restored on Earth here. And the book that they mentioned, which I can't believe they did, Millions Now Living Will Never Die, which was printed in 1920, I happen to have that book. Here it is. And I have referenced it before, but one of the things he says in here, and this is Judge Rutherford who wrote this book, which I've skimmed over it some, and it just is kind of absurd, really. I just rambling. So I don't even enjoy reading this. But one of the things he says is that we can expect 1925 to witness the return of these faithful men of old, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and other faithful ones of old, and that they will be restored to perfection, and that this is going to happen in 1925, and they will be resurrected as perfect men and rulers on earth. So they were expecting all of this to happen, that the paradise earth would be restored in 1925. So that's why he was saying that millions now living in 1920 would not die, because he was expecting supposedly 1925 to be the year when the earth would be restored to paradise. So I don't really know why he thought that that was a good idea to preach, because God knows he did not believe that. But it's just crazy and absurd, the things that they taught, the things that they teach today, and it's easily to prove it wrong, especially when you have a false prophecy being fulfilled in our day. So I hope that that has covered our basis here on Jehovah's Witnesses and persecution, why they believe that they are the only people out there truly being persecuted, and all other religions are considered false, the whore of Babylon, and they will be destroyed in Armageddon by Jehovah God and his angels and Jesus Christ. But as we can see, there have been many people who have been persecuted for their faith. So Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm sorry, but you are not unique, and you are not the only ones being persecuted. So they like to claim the victim here. But I hope that all of this information has been helpful and that you've enjoyed the content. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment and share. And if you have any suggestions or anything you would like me to discuss next, please list it in the comments below. And I hope to see you again soon, and stay tuned for more great information coming. Have a great day, and we will talk again soon.